Good morning. It is Coffee Chats with Coach Candy. I am so thrilled to have you here. Can you believe that this is episode 25? Holy cow. It has been amazing for sure. Cheers to your little caffeine jolt and boost for this morning. As you know, we get together or maybe you don't know, we get together every day, Monday through Friday. Good morning, Martha. 7:30 a.m. I go live, and we hit on a just myriad of topics. Today is going to be Friday feature. I'm going to share with you, good morning, Myra. I'm going to share with you a book that I have just finished that I wanted to bring to you because I feel like it is a fantastic Friday. I love that, Martha. And I feel like it is very timely, and I want to make sure that you can soak up this information and that I can share some of the really juicy nuggets with you. It has definitely been another game changer for me, and I have found this book to be absolutely fantastic. Good morning, Elaine. Good morning, Deborah. Good morning, ladies. And so just as you're jumping on, just to recap what we do each morning, Monday is all about Monday mindset. And so we talked about boundaries this week, which was pretty powerful, and got our week started off really beautifully. And so it's all about our beliefs and our mindset and really setting that intention so that we can show up and play at our best and highest level. Tuesday is the training space, so we get into some pretty deep strategies. We continued around the theme of focus management this week, which was all about major milestones and breaking down those big rocks so that you actually can set yourself up for success in the process. Wednesday was our Wednesday Wonder Space, so dancing in the Imagine If, and we were able to dig in a little deep there. And then Thursday, yesterday, was our Thankful Space. And so we were able to talk a little bit more about gratitude, and what we did was really lay out how to start a practice of gratitude and move past just having an attitude of gratitude, but really allowing ourselves to step into, good morning, Mario, stepping into a space where we can deliberately put a practice of gratitude in place. So that brings us to Friday, day 25. We have been doing this, y'all, for 25 days. That's crazy. I am just so deeply touched and moved that you all keep sharing your mornings with me. I have to tell you, even on mornings where it gets a little hard sometimes to get out of bed, you're worn out, you're tired, whatever, all I have to do is think about the fact that I get to see all of you showing up, and it propels me out of bed. It just fires me up. And so thank you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your first coffee, or maybe your second or third with me. And thank you, or tea. Some days you will see me drinking tea for sure. I'm actually a bigger tea drinker than coffee drinker. But it's such an honor. It's such a privilege to have you all join me every morning. And it does make these conversations really rich and meaty. And so we're going to dig into a little conversation today in just a moment, as I get my shot of caffeine in me. And what I want to talk about is a book that I've actually read a couple times. I listened to the audio first and then really wanted to dig in. And I have several books that I have in audio form, Kindle form, and hardback form. And there's a reason for that. And it's interesting. I just saw Brendan Burchard, who y'all know I love so much. He's one of my coaches, mentors. I've worked with Brendan for a long time. Been part of his mastermind, certified from HPA, all that kind of stuff. And I just saw him post something the other day that said, if you really want to absorb the information, if you really want to dig in on a deeper level, then listen to the audiobook while you read the book. So in conjunction, and it's true, because then we receive information in three ways: visually, audio, from a visual perspective, audio perspective, or kinesthetic perspective, which is the way we sense things, perceive things, feel things, touch, those kinds of things. So when you think about it, you think about when we can access all aspects of how we absorb information, how we learn, it just becomes more powerful. So I have a handful of books, more than probably I should. I spend so much money on books. And let me rephrase that. I invest so much in my ongoing professional and personal growth and development that I am constantly weeding through books to regift them or donate them so that I can bring new books into the house. Because at some point I don't want all of that weight weighing me down, but I love to surround myself by books. I am a voracious reader, always have been my whole life. And it was one of those things and I love the conversations where they say, you model what your children learn. I always saw my mom reading. Every night as she would wind down for the evening, she was reading a book. And so I was brought up watching my mom read every day. And so I read every day, and I read a book a week and sometimes more. And I usually have multiple books going on at the same time. And so I love to invest in my own development. This is a cool idea. I want to do that. Dare to Lead. Yes, that is a great book. Myra, that is an absolutely great book to do the audio and the book at the same time. Because I will say, and you know I love Brene. You know I love Brene Brown, and I'm going to stress this once again. If you did not watch last weekend, Call to Courage on Netflix, then take the hour and 16 minutes to gift yourself one of the best hours you will ever have and watch it this weekend. I am already going on my 4th time watching this, and I think I'm going to actually bring it into my 3-day so that we can have some rich and meaty discussion around it, because it is that powerful. I cannot stress that enough. Dare to Lead, I will say, love her books, love that book. That is more of an academic book than any of her other books. It's still incredible. It's still Brene. It's still all of the ways she wrote, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, all of that. And good morning, Cherie. I want you to realize that Dare to Lead is really going to get into more of the discipline academics and the structure around how you can lead differently. It's incredibly powerful, and it is a great example of doing an audiobook and reading at the same time. I listen to it when I walk Peyton, and then I dig in the concepts so that I can actually do research. And y'all know I love my notebooks. So I have notebooks like these when I'm listening to books as well. And so I have all kinds of notes. In fact, from Joe Vitale's book, the book we're going to get into today, I have 7 pages of notes. And there's a whole nother section I want to make sure I capture, because this is stuff. And I saw another thing from T. Harv Eker yesterday that said, you don't have to be an expert to teach. What you have to do is take that which is moving you, that which is creating passion, what you're putting into effect. You can teach the very things that you're learning as you're learning them to other people. One of the best ways to retain information is to teach it as you're learning it, because it helps cement it from your perspective, how it's resonating and how it's connecting with you. And so I say that, what's it called? Oh, the Netflix special is called Call to Courage. So I absolutely, please go watch it. It is, there's so many powerful messages in it. There's messages about how we courageously need to step up and have a different conversation. It's funny. I assure you, you will laugh. You will cry. I've had some of my corporate clients tell me, wow, Candy, I teared up quite a bit on that one. I'm like, yeah, it just touches your soul. She's absolutely brilliant, and she does it with such grace and humor, and she's just wide open, vulnerable, and real. And it truly was done beautifully well. And I'm just going to keep emphasizing, please take time to watch that. I think it will change your life. I really believe that. I think there's so much to pull from that. And I can't watch it enough. And I want to teach everything in it and go deeper and just really keep doing that kind of work. So yes, oh, that's interesting, Myra. I knew I loved you. I am an engineer by degree as well. So yes, it makes sense. And I am a mechanical engineer, MSM instead of a BS. That's hilarious. Oh my God, I had no idea we had that in common. I actually started my master's in engineering management, and started a master's in environmental engineering, and then decided, oh my God, what am I doing? So it's interesting because and I love that you just said that, because a lot of people will push back and say, especially some of the messages that I stand in now, which have a much deeper spiritual presence to them, anchor to them, roots to them. I don't like the word anchor, roots to them. They have a much deeper presence and roots. I get people like, Candy, that's really woo-woo. That's the soft and fuzzy stuff. And I'm like, my engineer brain kicks in so quick and says, actually, it's physics. It's science. Everything that I'm telling you is about energy. It's about how you harness energy, how you create and generate energy, how you move energy, how it's the second law of thermodynamics, and that, matter can either be created or destroyed, neither can energy. And when you think about all of that, also, I was a 6 Sigma black belt, so I have a lot of lean quality management behind me, process control, those kinds of things. And I tell people, I said, you do realize coaching, and Myra, you'll probably appreciate this, coaching is very similar to the DMAIC process. The DMAIC process, just for all of you, is design, measure, assess, or analyze, improve, and control. You realize that's exactly what I do from a coaching perspective. I just call it different things. And instead of working with products and systems, I'm working with humans and emotions, and I'm working with mindset. The process is actually the same. And so I think it's really interesting. I love that you just shared that. I have even a bigger appreciation and love for you right now, Myra. I did not know we were soul sisters in that space too. So that is just awesome and fantastic. I love that you shared that. Mario, I do audiobooks at 2.5 speed while I'm reading the physical book. It's an awesome way to consume books. Yes. By the way, that's a really great way to quickly just get in the space of a book. If you're like, man, the audiobooks take too long, move the speed up. It will just sound like me talking instead of a normal person's pace. And by the way, I love that Anthony Trucks once said on stage, I love that man. He's an ex-NFL player and just one of my most favorite people. I met him through Brendan, and he gets on stage and he's like, look, I don't talk fast. Y'all just need to listen faster. And I so embrace that. So I would say that when my audiobooks come out, you probably don't want to 2x that because that might be really fast. But if you want speed like this most of the time, just 2.5, 2x, whatever the speed on your audiobook, and it does. It helps you consume, it helps you absorb. Good morning, Renee. Love having you on here. So that all being said, I am wound up this morning. It is Friday, fantastic Friday. It is fabulous. The weather is freaking awesome here in Austin. As you can see, my door is wide open. I'm in a t-shirt, and I am just looking to crank today up, because today is not an easy rest day. Today is a push it through the finish line. Winners keep pushing on Friday. Winners go the extra mile on Friday, and I want you to realize that this is your opportunity when everybody else is slowing down and copping out, that you get to show up more profoundly and purposely and passionately. I did Expert Secrets at 2.5 speed and finished in 4 hours and 1 sitting. Yes, and Brendan's one of those that sometimes can get a little fast too. Or that's Russell Brunson, Expert Secrets. I actually have that hard book. But yes, there are ways to consume that. Now, there are 2 things I want you to be mindful of that too. When you're just doing it really fast, sometimes we don't integrate. And so one of the things I want you to think about is I've actually slowed myself down a little bit so that I'm not just reading and reading and reading and consuming and not doing anything with it. It's one of the reasons I like setting up Feature Friday, because it gives me an opportunity to train the content of the books that I'm reading, because it's only when you put it into action and integrate the content that you're really going to absorb it. So you can consume, but you're not really going to digest it if you don't find a way to put it into action and to integrate it. And sometimes it's just simply putting down your own thoughts or notes. Sometimes it's teaching it and leading it forward. Sometimes it's being able to really sit and put some practices in, like the 5 a.m. club. I could have easily read that in a week, and I ended up taking 3+ weeks to read it because I wanted to take the concepts inside of there, and I wanted to make sure that I was applying the discipline every day in my life and starting to build upon those. Because if I didn't do the work in it, yeah, I would have been like, great book, and there wouldn't have been anything that changed in my life. So be mindful of the fact that you can consume information, and then you can really digest and integrate and implement that so that you're creating more change in your life. And so this book right here, The Awakened Millionaire. Let me see, I got a couple of you. Love Brendan. Oh, I love Brendan. Crush it today. Absolutely. Friday is the day to grow while the rest are resting. Yes, rest or relaxing. Totally agree with that. Best way to learn is to hit pause and acting right away on what you want to learn. Yes, which is one of the reasons why I want to bring this book to you. I love Joe Vitale, and for those of you that don't know who he is, watch The Secret. He is one of the main teachers, main gurus on there that shares his story. But I love a lot of Joe's work. He does a lot around the law of attraction. In fact, I have done tremendous work with Joe in the space of law of attraction, and even in the progression of getting my master's certification to train in this space. But this book here, I have to say, I've listened to it on audio several times and then realized that I wanted to get it in a physical form as well. And so this is called The Awakened Millionaire, a manifesto for the spiritual wealth movement. And so I love this because one of the things that I always love when you have conversations about wealth is you start to talk about the fact that it's much bigger than just a money conversation. And what I really love is he starts out in this whole space of saying that this is a manifesto to help you come to a place where material and spiritual are at peace. So think about that for a minute. A lot of us have some locked mindset and beliefs around how much we're allowed to have, that material possessions are bad, that money is good, bad, evil, whatever it is. And it really resets the fact that money is neutral. Money has absolutely no purpose until we give it purpose. And also, we need money in order to do any of the large movement type stuff that we need. Nothing in this world can be accomplished. Everything is connected to money. And so money is just a neutral energy that we need in order to keep that energy moving and keep that flow going. And I've said this before, money needs to be in motion. Money needs to be flowing just like water. And so I want you to think about money. Money is like water, or as Bruce Lee would say, be soft like water, my friend, which is all about keeping money in flow, keeping energy in flow, because as soon as you harness energy and keep it still, or you keep water still, what happens is you start to create this either large potential energy that starts to get really, big, or you create this space of this toxic static space that becomes really, think about water. If it stands too long, think about water in a well. What happens to it if it's not moving? It starts to get really icky, it starts to get sick, and it starts to become very toxic. It's the same kind of things when we hold on or hoard onto these beliefs and these things about money. Good morning, Winnie. So I want you to think about that as you're looking in this space around your own beliefs and your own stories around money. And so this is the place where the material and the spiritual come together. And so again, love this book. What's interesting is I didn't tab this one all over because I took such notes that I have just all my yellow markings everywhere instead. I'm a fan of highlighters and tabs, and y'all know that. And so I want you to also think about this concept. And I've heard this multiple times, but I love the way that Joe reiterates this in this book. It's the fact that it's not what we go around saying things such as, it is what it is. And the truth of that is, it is what we accept. And so I want you to let that kind of settle in for a moment and think about that. It isn't what it is, because what it is just a version of the truth that we filtered based on our experiences, based on our expertise, based on our beliefs. So truth is this very subjective space. Oftentimes there's very universal truths. There are things that are absolute in this world, and then there are things that my truth may be something that is not true for you. And it comes from a place of our beliefs, our stories, our programming, our upbringing, our experiences, our culture, our conditioning. All of those things play into how we perceive. Oh, there's Peyton. Those things that we perceive to be true based on what we know up to that point. So when we say it is what it is, we take out the power of responsibility and the power of choice in that moment. Because again, it's like the where there's a will, there's a way. We just say, well, that's not mine. It is what you accept. Because inside of that, even if it's subconscious, there's a choice that is happening. You are choosing to believe that to be your reality and be your truth. And so I want you to notice the distinction between that. And that's a lot of what Joe talks about in the Awakened Millionaire, is really understanding your responsibility in that space. It is really understanding that nothing is being done to you. You are choosing and inviting whatever circumstances, whatever experiences, whatever truth you are viewing. That is a belief, that is a choice, and you can choose to change that story at any time. So I want you to think about the fact that it's not what it is. It is what it is. It is what you accept and what you choose to believe in that space. And so again, I'm always going to come back to this power of choice, because everything fundamentally comes down to that. And we've talked about that so many times. Leadership is a function of how you choose to show up, how you choose to serve others, and how you choose to take personal responsibility inside that space. And a big part of being awakened is the fact that you are choosing to take personal responsibility for your thoughts, for your beliefs, for your expectations, for what you say and what you do, because those are the only things that you ultimately can control. And you can only do that for yourself. You cannot do that for another human being, including your children. For some of you that have tried, I know, you know that that is not possible, right? I can't even do it for Peyton. I cannot choose to control what he thinks, believes, expects, says, and does. And yes, he does all of those things as well. So I also want you to think about this idea of why we procrastinate. There is usually that space of, it's those fears that show up, right? And a lot of times the people think that they're afraid to fail, where failing isn't even actually a real thing. Failing is nothing more than feedback. The only way you fail is to two ways, truthfully, if you want to look at the definition of failing. And one is to not put the energy forward to actually attempt, to actually try, to actually move forward, to actually take that risk. That's failing because you've never even started. So that is failing because you've not allowed yourself permission to move forward. Failing is also when you've seen the mistake, or you've seen the feedback, and you've seen the opportunity to grow, and you choose to keep repeating the same behavior over and over again. Again, it's a choice, even if it's subconscious. Because one of the things I also love that Joe says in this book, and this one really hit me, this one hit me so profoundly, it was like, holy crap. I mean, like 2x4 by the universe that just hit me in the head, was when he said, if you feel triggered or you're having a reaction to anything, know that that's the moment that you've gone unconscious. Think about that for a minute. That was like, I had to sit with that for a minute because I was like, ooh, that's a big statement. That if you're feeling triggered or emotionally reacting to something, it's because it's a moment where you went unconscious. I want to like sit there for a minute. I want to, with all of that I just said, I want to kind of sit on that for just a minute and get some thoughts around what's showing up for you, because that's a really powerful statement. So is the space around it's not what it is what you accept. I'm just curious what's showing up for you guys, because these are some really big concepts in here, and I really just want to give us a moment to let that kind of marinate and, you know, percolate a little bit in my coffee analogy, and see what's showing up for you. See what you're thinking, see what kind of thoughts you have around that. Let's see. All right, I'll give you guys a minute as I start to dig through and go through a little more of what I want to share from you that's like so awesome. I love this book. And so think about it, being an awakened millionaire, being an awakened leader, the reason that you go unconscious in that space is because you're not being present. Because when the trigger shows up, all it is, when fear shows up, when trigger shows up, when anxiety shows up, when anything that creates that reaction for you shows up, it's an opportunity for you to lean in and get curious. It's an opportunity for you to make a choice. And so anytime that comes up for you, it's simply an opportunity for you to explore and to ask some questions and to make a choice about, are you going to move forward or are you going to let it hold you back? And let's see, when I get triggered, I feel like I go numb. First of all, thank you, Martha, for being so wide open around that, because I think there's a lot of people that do that. There's typically 3 responses we have when a fear or trigger shows up. We have what's called a fight, flight, or freeze response. And Martha, what you're talking about is probably more of a freeze response. It's kind of that deer in headlights, just kind of stuck, paralyzed, really don't want to move, sometimes for risk of antagonizing or adding more energy into the fear. And so one of the things that you get to do is notice what is your default. And I absolutely love that you share this, Martha. And again, just honor you for being so vulnerable. I want you to recognize that what is your default. My default, now, we may have a different default depending on if it's a male triggering us or a female, or depending on what environment. Typically, my default is a fight mode. I want to like claw my way out of something. I want to punch. I want to fight. I get very heavy, resistant, aggressive energy when I'm feeling triggered. Now, there's also times where I want to retreat, where I want to go into the ball. I want to cry. I want to shut the world out. So I go to one extreme. I don't usually have the freeze space. I usually either want to push and punch into it, or I want to completely go small and shrink down and run away, and I want to shut the world out, and I want to go. So it depends on if I'm being triggered in my extroverted space or my introverted space a lot of times. But what's interesting is when you know what your default is, you can start to create more awareness around that and start to lean in and say, all right, I see myself going numb. Then the opportunity right in that space, so Martha, here's an opportunity for you, is to say, what's triggering me right now? And again, it goes back to being really mindful and really open and vulnerable with yourself so that you can be honest to say, what's the emotion that's really showing up? Because oftentimes when we go numb, we're like, oh, I'm just done. I'm pissed off. I'm something, or any other emotion, any other way we respond. When if we really peeled it back, that's not what we're feeling. What we do is we say the emotions that we think are accepted, that are okay, even if we're just speaking to ourselves. We do the masking emotion, is what I would call that. instead of the getting into the really icky truth about, because it's very vulnerable even for yourself to say, I'm scared right now. I feel wide open and naked, and I feel like I've been left out for the whole world to see. I'm feeling really insecure right now. I'm feeling unworthy right now. I'm feeling not confident. It's really and again, I'm going to stress, watch Brené's special, The Call to Courage. You will see her wide open, vulnerable space that she stands in. It's beautiful. And allowing yourself that permission, because here's the thing, if we can't even be vulnerable with ourselves, we will never be able to be vulnerable with other people. And so when those triggers are showing up, I want you to lean into it and allow yourself a very kind, compassionate, and graceful space, loving space to say, I've got you. I see you. What's really going on? And it's as if you were talking to that small child. If you remember when I talked about when we are, as adults, are just throwing those little temper tantrums, our ego's getting fired up and our ego is just throwing a temper tantrum because it's freaking out. Instead of trying to punch it in the face or ignore it or just completely be like, what? Get into a space to have a real conversation with it, to bring it to the table and say, you know, let's have a cup of tea. Let's sit down and tell me what's going on. And this is a great space for meditation and journaling. When you can get into a space to be still. And we talked about that this week when it came to, you know, finding space to really allow ourselves. And last week we talked about going empty, right? We talked about that space of really allowing yourself the martial arts space of being empty. Allow yourself to empty and get really dialed into what's the real emotion that you're feeling. Because the thing is, you then may want to say, instead of going numb, I want to push myself so that I stand up and have more of a voice. I want to be able to do some different things so that I'm not shutting down and I'm not disengaging from whatever is happening in that moment. And so this is an opportunity for you to explore and get curious. Deborah, I'm also an engineer. I love that. I got a bunch of engineers on this. I love that my engineers come hang out. You guys all make me so happy. I'm also an engineer, part of why I followed you for so long. That just makes me happy. See, because I will tell you, for some of you that are not engineers that think that we have our own little language and our own little secret society, first of all, we do. And we also have hearts and souls and want to tap into stuff that helps us be and feel more human. We are not robotic. We are not. And it amazes me how many people are afraid to bring a message like this into a group of IT people or engineers, when I will tell you, most of my corporate clients, that's who I work with because they crave it so much. So I get so excited that I have so many of you on here that are science geeks, math geeks, my little engineers with me. You're my peeps. I love that so much. Absolutely love that. Martha Freeze, yes, deer in the headlights. So you recognize that. And so I'm curious, what shows up for the rest of you? What is your default? Is it fight, flight, freeze? What shows up when you're feeling triggered? Because the more you recognize that, the more you give yourself permission to dig into that, the more you can start to say, okay, then how do I choose to show up more powerfully? How do I choose to show up as a leader, leading from love with love? And what's inside of that for me to explore? Because it's such an opportunity to help grow you to your next level. And so the other thing that he gets into a lot in this book is this idea of your passion, purpose, and mission. And how he digs into trying to understand more what your passion, purpose, and mission are is really powerful. And so just on the surface level, because I'm not going to share all of Joe's stuff, you need to go out and read the book. But he talks about passion is that which you have deep love for. So anything in your life that you have a deep love for, you have this passion. So passion plus purpose, there's a goal and aim. And usually what shows up when you have a passion, when you have a deep love for something, when you really step into that love, you find something that's missing. There's usually a gap. There's usually something that's not happening. And that's where you can create that goal or aim to say, I want to address it. And it might just be, what if, or imagine if I could get this message out to more people. I feel like this is such a powerful message, yet I feel like there's not enough people hearing this. So imagine if I could find a way to capture more people to let them resonate with this message. What if, or imagine if I could make it easier for them to get access. Imagine if I could solve that problem that seems like the one thing no one's addressing inside that space. And so when you get really passionate, and I could go on for days about why I do this work, both with entrepreneurs and business owners and individuals, as well as with corporate, because there's a lot of gaps that when I get really passionate and fired up about the things that I know I want to play in, there's so many gaps and so many things. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this Facebook Lives. I want a way to access more reach. I want a way to access a way to connect with people regularly so that they're not losing sight of these messages. They're not losing sight of the fact that there's a community of people around here that want to stand in this place, that together we can lift and raise that level of consciousness. It takes having these conversations on an ongoing basis. And so where and how can you create those communities is really something that just drives me, because then you get into your mission, which becomes your calling. And so like I said, even this morning, I was kind of like, man, it'd be so easy to lay in bed. And instantly I was like, I have a community of people that are waiting for me. And I got out of bed and I'm like, I get to do this. This is a need to, have to, from a necessity standpoint, which makes it a calling that says I get to show up and stand in that space purposely. And I take full responsibility and honor in that space for what I get to do. And so I just say that, good morning, Kathy. Oh, wonderful that you could join us. Elaine, it often depends on the situation. I'm very much like you. I will go into fight mode or flight mode and go quiet. Yes. And by the way, most of us don't have just one default. We have several defaults when it comes down to how we respond when those triggers or reactions show up. And so anytime, figure out, because I know which things make me go into fight mode. And I'm like, ooh, that's a really intense, aggressive energy that you're creating for yourself, Candy. I know where I feel it in my body, and it feels very tight. It really feels very resistant. And I also know when I allow myself to go small, and it feels like the flight mode. And so what I do is I start to recognize where those triggers are showing up and what beliefs and stories I have attached to them, so that then I can purposely show up and start to say, okay, so what can I control in this situation? What can I choose differently? And sometimes it's as simple, and I didn't say easy. Easy and simple are two different words. It's as simple as changing my story, changing my language, changing what I'm holding on to as a belief. Now, where it becomes a little bit more challenging is the discipline and the practice of the habits to start to create a different way that you react to those situations. And so everything requires that space of, instead of changing old programming, go in and reset and add something new. And there's a discipline and a daily practice in order to make that a habit, so that when that trigger, and I've said this before, you have one of three options when a trigger shows up. You can either stand in the space to say, yep, nope, not dealing with that today, and go into fight, flight, freeze mode and be like, nope, not for me. And you're checking out, which ultimately means you're copping out and you are playing victim. That is a choice. Playing victim is a choice. And so if you are blaming, justifying, rationalizing, or complaining, or making any kind of excuse, know that you're justifying or putting yourself in that space to be a victim. That is a choice when a trigger shows up. You can say, nope, not doing that one today. The other one, and this is a space that I've really been digging in with you, is that space to lean in and get curious. That space to say, I've noticed this shows up on a regular basis for me. I notice that this is my energy when this shows up. I notice I feel this in my body, and I want to be more purposeful about what's the story behind that and how do I change that story so that I can open up access for something more that serves me at a higher level. The third one is, once you've done all that work, those triggers still show up. And what happens is you recognize them, and the moment you recognize them, you're like, yeah, nope, I'm good. And not from a cop-out space, but from I've done my work in that space, and that doesn't affect me anymore. And then it's just like water off a duck's back, and it just kind of like floats away, and it goes away. And you notice, because the triggers never go away, and you have now become more awakened in that space because you're being conscious, you're being present, you're showing up with intention to really be mindful around what that trigger does for you and how that no longer serves. So you've allowed yourself to bless and release it. It's gone away, and you can create some different things. Elaine, my non-negotiables often come into place. Yes! Oh my God, I love how that was just a bookend and brought it full circle from our conversation on Monday. What a beautiful way to kind of bring this conversation to a close. Thank you, Elaine. I love that seed you just planted. We talked about boundaries on Monday. We talked about why it's so critical for you to have a clear understanding of what's okay for you, what's safe for you, what's not okay for you, and what's not safe for you, and what are your non-negotiables. When you, and only until you, take time to understand that. And by the way, this means hitting the pause. And for those of you that have seen a lot of what I've put out this week about the ideal calendar, and I've got a video going out this morning. I've had a big week. It's been a lot of processing and grieving. I had a dear friend pass unexpectedly this week, which puts things in perspective. Anytime there's a loss, you're put back in a space of just massive perspective if you choose that opportunity. And I really felt compelled to challenge people around, when is enough enough? When do we finally give ourselves permission to hit pause so that we can do the work required to create the life we want? And one of those pieces of the work that's required is for you to hit pause. You to hit pause powerfully and to stop, fully stop, so that you can assess what is okay for me, what is safe for me, what is not okay for me, and what is not safe, and what are my non-negotiables. Because only until you do that work, you will never be able to walk in this space to deal with how to be more awakened and move past some of your triggers and do the work required to take responsibility to go to the next level. Because until you know your boundaries, until you are very clear about your boundaries, can communicate those boundaries and set expectations around those boundaries, you will never effectively be able to say yes to yourself. And you will have all that noise still surrounding you that is allowing other people to dictate how you're being led, instead of you choosing how you show up, how you serve others, and how you take personal responsibility inside that space. So I love that just encapsulated our whole week, that we went back to the very conversation. Elaine, thank you so much. That is so powerful. And if you missed Monday's coffee chat, I want you to go back. They're all in order. I have a whole library on this page. Go back and watch Monday's coffee chat with Coach Candy, because we get into a powerful conversation around boundaries. And in order for you to fully appreciate a book like this and to do the work that Joe is challenging you in, and to become an awakened millionaire and an awakened leader, I want you to think about being an awakened leader. I want you to put yourself in a space to be conscious and present in terms of how you're choosing to show up and serve, and to, as Brene says, take the call to courage that allows you to step forward and lead with great purpose and passion, and with a place that's just purposeful and meaningful and full of intention. Because the only way you can effectively lead from love with love is to know who you are, know what your boundaries are, and know why you choose to show up like that every day. And so we're going to start getting into some more of that, which is what I call the what, why, and who, which is some of my favorite stuff to dig into. But for now, any other last comments, any things, like I said, I'm a little fired up. I got to start calling these Fired Up Fridays. You'd think I'd be like tapped out, especially after the week I've had. And I am just, stop working. I am just in a fired up, like I feel like I just want to do all this training, and maybe it's because I know I'm having a half-day deep dive mastermind with one of my groups Sunday. I've got a big 3-day coming up next week, and so I'm just getting kind of like the engine primed so that I can deliver at my highest and best level. And I encourage all of you to go check it out, the Yes Ideal Calendar System. If you really are finding that you don't have the space, if you don't have the time, I mean, I'm offering this it's an entire system. It helps you build out every block of what you need for your calendar, front to end. It's $49. It is not an investment that is going to do anything other than give you awesome access for like nothing. And so don't let that stop you. If you are like, I need to restructure something, if I need to find a way to show up more powerfully and purposely, stop waiting, take action. I will put the link again in here, but it is a no-brainer. It gives you everything in terms of how to build your bookends, the power blocks, how to have your genius zones, how do you create playtime and white space and start creating more fulfillment and time to sit with and create the pause around who are you, what are your boundaries, and what is really meaningful and powerful for you. So I encourage you to go check it out. Again, always check out the podcast. There's so much awesome insight and information there. I have so many other thought leaders that I get to play in the ring with, go a few rounds, and we have some juicy, meaty, delicious conversations. You can find that on iTunes and YouTube. It's the Powerhouse Podcast. So just lots of resources, lots of ways that you can connect, especially if you're starting to get really curious about these triggers and wanting to dig in and do more of the work. Know that we have resources for you. Know that you do not have to do this alone. And as always, I'm going to be here at 7:30 a.m. Central Time every day. I will be back Monday morning with another piece of mindset to help us dig in further. So my non-negotiables often come into place. Yes, heart-to-heart hugs. Yes, heart-to-heart hugs to all of you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Stay fired up for Friday. Go to the finish line and bring your brilliance today. Go Cubbies. Always go Cubbies. Love that. And thanks. Have a great weekend, everyone. Powerhouse Podcast is awesome. Thank you, Winnie, so much. I appreciate that. So, mwah, I love you. I love you. I love you. Sending you huge heart-to-heart hugs. You are fabulous. You are fantastic. You are needed. You are powerful. And I want you to know that. Please, please, please go share your message. Let me know how I can continue to support you. Let me know what you need. If there are topics you want me to dig into, please let me know that too. This is your space. I am here to serve you. I can talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but I also want to make sure I'm bringing things that are really relevant and needed. So let me know if there are things you want to hear. With that, have a wonderful, fabulous, amazing, kick-ass weekend, and I will see you all same time, same bat station on Monday. Mwah.